Some of you might already know, but I'm trying to make a game. Over the past month, I've posted updates under the community tab, a few shorts, some live streams, but no actual videos. Before I start explaining it, I need to mention I am trying to hire a scripter to help me complete this game. I've gotten it to a simple, playable state with issues, but this is not where I want it to be. The dev forum post is in the description, and I'll bring it up in more detail later. There is compensation. I've mentioned this before in a few videos, but I like games that can be enjoyed fully in one session. More specifically, games that don't require you to grind levels to unlock things. I've also talked about my interest in older style Roblox shooter games like Heli Wars, Base Wars, and that Trench War game I showed off. Now, I want to do a bit more with this concept, but I also want to take it in a direction that most shooters don't tend to go. There was an old Roblox game called Ages of War by The Gamer 101. One of his games used to be super popular back in the day. It was called Sword Fighting Tournament. Anyways, Ages of War was a simple combat game where two teams would fight to get points and evolve, starting in the Stone Age and eventually running around with laser guns. But my game isn't going to go nearly that far. I want to focus on 20th and 19th century infantry combat. Sector Wars, the name for my game, is based around a series of maps that all flow together. I'm going to be talking about a hypothetical finished product from here on, but eventually I'll circle back to what's currently playable. The campaign starts on a neutral sector, and depending on which team wins, the next map is loaded in the series. But you don't get sent to a lobby. Instead, the battle continues almost immediately. These maps, called sectors, are all planned to be the same size. They would have multiple objectives inside of them, which the attackers have to take, and if they're successful, they get to advance once again. If the attackers fail, they're pushed back to the previous sector. So let me get back to the whole time progression thing, because I forgot to mention that. This game is a randomizer. There are no loadouts. The teams won't even have access to the same weapons when spawning either. Depending on what team you're on and what time period the game has progressed to, there would be different weights assigned to each weapon in the roster. For example, if the year is 1860, you'll probably spawn with a single-shot breech loader or a rifle musket. Less commonly, you might get a revolver or some kind of repeater. If the year is 1930, you'll probably spawn with a bolt-action rifle. Less commonly, you might get a light machine gun or a submachine gun. I would also eventually go back through and switch out some of the elements on the maps that don't fit the time period. Other elements of the map that don't fit any time period would be left alone, like this building right here. I'm going to quickly go over how the campaigns would work because I forgot to do that in the first draft of this video. So for every battle won, one team would advance, one team would retreat, and the years would progress with the maps. Is it going to be 5 years every time? No idea. We'll have to see how it works. In this example, we have Team 2 win a campaign pretty early, and once it's over, you can vote for what year you want to start on. The furthest back I'm going to go with this game is 1860, and the furthest forward I'm going to go with this game at the moment is 1960. If you manage to progress all the way to 1960 without either team winning, there won't be any more time progression, you'll just fight indefinitely across the maps. Alright, back to where we were before. So now I'm going to talk about the weapons specifically. None of the guns in the game are going to be attempts to depict real weapons accurately. They're all going to be kind of amalgamations of different weapons that existed in the time. If you want examples of what I'm talking about, I'll put some on the screen. The bolt-action rifle is an amalgamation of, well, the M1 Garand is where it gets its internal magazine. The bolt itself, bolt handle, is from the Gewehr 98. There's a lot of different stuff in there. So even though this isn't going to be a realistic game, I'm still going to incorporate some elements from realistic FPS games that I like. Mostly as a way to try to foster team play as well as the style of gameplay that I like. I'm a fan of like Red Orchestra, Rising Storm. So suppression is heavy, recoil is high, and it doesn't matter what they shoot you with. If you get hit in a certain spot in your head, you will take 100 damage. 100 damage specifically. I'll get back to that later. Also, the weapons you have access to, as I mentioned earlier, are not the same between the two teams. The reason why I've done this is because I'm a fan of Forgotten Weapons. I don't know if you guys watch him, you probably do. And one of the more interesting things he brings up in his videos talking about procurement for the different militaries is the different infantry doctrine for different militaries. So some examples that would be planned for this game: one team having access to a better machine gun than the other team, but the other team would have more automatic weapons overall, kind of like the Soviets versus the Germans. Another dynamic would be one team switching over to an intermediate cartridge versus the other team maintaining their full power cartridge. Basically, assault rifles versus battle rifles. But despite everything I just said, there would be arcadey mechanics thrown in there as a reference to older Roblox games, and also just because they're fun. For example, the linked sword is just in the game. It gives you extra vertical mobility, allowing you to jump into higher ledges. Also, I made a Bloxy Cola tool that gives you immunity to suppression as well as extra HP for 35 seconds. So that's where that 100 damage comes in. If you drink Bloxy Cola, you'll have 35 seconds of extra HP. You get shot in the head, you'll survive for now. When that timer runs out, you'll die unless someone heals you. Speaking of healing, I have a med kit in the game currently. If you heal yourself, it's a 30-second cooldown. If you heal others, it's a 15-second cooldown. I did this because I want to foster the team gameplay, as I said previously. Also, the medkit is a full heal. I did this because I want the fights to be very dynamic. Some other utilities I would like to include in the future: trowel tool, so you could build a wall anywhere, and the speed coil. In terms of the arcadey mechanics, there are certain lines I'm not going to cross. Until I know how the game's going to play, I really don't want to give players any additional vertical mobility, so no gravity coil, or no super jump or rocket boots. Also, I don't want to include any other weapons besides the melees that are references to classic Roblox gear. You know, a subspace trip mine is cool, but I think having like an actual real-life bomb or like a satchel charge is cooler. So I went on a tangent for a bit too long talking about the weapons, so I'm going to get back to the gameplay. I mentioned all this before with the sectors having objectives. They would be divided into sections with some kind of barrier, so even within the sector you would still have to capture something to advance to the other half of it. The only example of a map I have right now that's set up for that is the first hill, which is this map right here. There is a underground bunker system with forward spawns for the defending team, and the final objective would be to destroy these anti-aircraft guns. Or I guess if this was in an earlier era, these would be heavy mortars of some kind. And we're going immediately back to guns because I forgot to mention something: the ammo mechanics. Like I said, the teams use different weapons. They also use different ammunition generally, and I want you to be able to drop and pick up your weapon as well as the ammunition that you have. This game is about attacking and defending both your territory and enemy territory. There would be inherent buffs and debuffs associated with that. For every few minutes you spend in enemy territory, you would spawn with less ammo. If you keep up the attack without capturing anything, you would be forced to retreat back to the previous sector. But there are unique buffs associated with attacking: random events. If a battle goes on for too long, there would be certain events which would break the stalemate. These events are always in favor of the attackers, but the defenders have the ability to shut them down if they pay attention. One example I had was a reconnaissance aircraft, or I guess in earlier eras, a reconnaissance balloon. This would be used to guide artillery strikes onto enemy positions. If you shoot down the aircraft, the artillery strike would be cancelled. Another idea I had was a human wave attack. The attackers would be given immediate respawns, and they would be given increased walk speed. However, if you're ready for this, and there would be some kind of signal that you could pay attention for, you could set up a machine gun in the right spot and shut it down. There's a lot more ideas I had. I wanted to incorporate man-portable weapon systems that are heavier, like tripod machine guns that can be moved around by players, light field guns, things like that. Potentially a random event could be a tank that's on a track, kind of like Centaura. But unlike Centaura, I would want the tank to be player-controlled. It would still be on tracks, but in order for it to start shooting, someone would have to jump inside of it. I don't know why I'm saying tracks, probably because I'm talking about tanks. I meant on rails. Just like in Centaur, where they can only go down a certain path, it would be the same as that, except in order for it to move up and down the path and shoot, a player would have to get inside and control it. I'm talking about a lot of stuff here that I potentially can't promise, so I'm gonna reel it in a little bit and talk about the ad again. So if you've made it this far, hopefully you're someone who's very interested in this. You might have already read it in the description, but I'm offering 50% of the revenue plus 200 additional USD to people who can actually help me finish this game. This is an unorthodox way of doing this, and I might go to Discord servers or other places to try to find the right person, but I'm just casting a wide net here. I have a pretty firm idea of what I want, and there are some ideas that are kind of out there, but I think overall the game is pretty limited in scope. I'm not focusing too hard on aesthetics, and the game isn't even going to have ADS. It's just going to be very simplistic. I want to focus on the gameplay foremost. If you are watching the footage closely, or you've been a part of the playtest, you know that the hit detection is awful. I took a fast cast gun from a tutorial and I tried to make it work, and it works sometimes, but oh my god, other times it is just like I also did some other stuff to it that was not part of the original gun, which potentially made it worse. I tried to make the bullets come out of the camera to compensate for the parallax, and then in order to, prevent people from shooting around walls, I added this like weird checker thing, which fires off all the time when it's not supposed to, so you'll be trying to shoot someone right in front of you and they'll tell you can't shoot them. I need someone who actually understands this shit. We're 10 minutes in, I can curse, right? I need someone who understands this shit, who can help me. I don't know if this is unrealistic, but I'm hoping to get the game done within 2 months after finding the right person. After the game is in place, the rewrite of the gun system that makes it functional all the time with some additional features that I didn't quite get in there yet, like fire modes, other miscellaneous things like the bayonets. Also getting the map rotation system working, the ammo-based objective system working. After that's all in place, I can just start pumping out tons of weapons while they work on some of the other stuff that I've listed. Maps as well, I need to put out a bunch of maps with a bunch of different props and all that. And later on, eventually, I'd want to add like different hats for the different teams in different time periods, and potentially put those hats on the catalog. They don't call it the catalog anymore, whatever it's called, the marketplace. Just some simplistic military-style hats for a square head, because I think those would probably sell. But yeah, if you watched all the way to this point, thank you.